Hello everyone, my name is Miss Casey and this is Fibo Kids Art Academy bringing you some more art exercises, so welcome back. Today we are going to be learning about how to draw weather. Now weather can come in many different forms. You know, there's sunny, there's cloudy, there's windy, there's rainy, many different types of weather, and it also depends on where you live. You might live somewhere where it's always really sunny, like maybe in California. Or you might live somewhere where it's always snowing, maybe on the East Coast. So it really depends, but I hope you guys have seen at least a little bit of all types of weather. And so we're going to be learning how to draw those kinds of weather using lines, shapes, colors, textures. This will really help you whether you like to draw realistically or in a cartoon or an anime style. We're going to learn how to make our weather look more realistic or more animated and really get you guys to kind of think about these things if you are drawing a certain type of background and you need to think about the weather that's in your background. This will really help you. All right, so let's go ahead and keep watching and we're going to go into our drawing. All right, now here on my desk, you guys can see what I have here. So we're going to be learning how to draw 4 different types of weather. Now you can follow along with me in maybe 2 of them, or 1 of them, or all of them. It's totally up to you. We are going to be splitting our paper into 4. Once you draw one with me, then you can decide if you don't like the types of weather that I'm going to be drawing, you can decide to draw your own type of weather, but still kind of pay attention as I draw the rest of them because there are going to be really unique tips and ideas on how we can draw certain types of weather. Even if you're not going to draw the specific weather with me, you might learn something about a certain line that helps create a look or a certain texture. Okay, so at the end of this, once we have our drawing, as you can see, I've only colored in 1, but once we have our drawing, you guys can take any materials that you want, any colors that you want. It's totally up to you. And once you are done drawing, you can take some time to color in all of your drawings. I'm only going to have time and take up time to draw 1, so that way you guys can do the rest of it, and you guys can, use your imagination, use your creativity, and do whatever you'd like with the drawings that you make today. Okay, so for this, you're going to need a piece of paper. It can be any kind of paper, like sketchbook paper. It could be copy paper, Bristol paper, watercolor paper. It's totally up to you. You're also going to be needing a pencil and maybe an eraser if you would like to, erase any lines that you don't like. I'm going to be drawing in Sharpie right away, so that way you guys can see my pencil lines. Once you are done drawing in your pencil, you can definitely outline it with the Sharpie, just like I'm going to be drawing and having on my paper. So you can take your time and outline that, or you can just go straight into coloring once you're done drawing with your pencil. It's totally up to you. But again, I'm going to be drawing in Sharpie, and you can start in pencil. Afterward, like I said, you can go ahead and choose to color the drawings that you make. I'm going to be using markers to show how I colored mine in, but you can use any materials that you have, any materials that you want to color with. Maybe you're going to use different materials for each section. That's totally up to you. I want you guys to have fun with this and definitely experiment a little, and let's get started. So I'm going to need a new piece of paper here. What we want to focus on, even if you're going to be drawing different types of weather than what I do, what I want you guys to focus on is we're going to create a similar scene, a similar background for each of our section that we make. And that's just so that way we don't focus too much on what's going on in our backgrounds or in our scenes. We're more focused on the changing of weathers. Now, weathers can change, in different seasons. They can change with, again, the location that you live in. It all depends. So what I'm doing now is I am sectioning off my paper. I'm drawing a plus sign. I'm putting my paper horizontal, side to side. Then I'm creating a plus sign, up and down and side to side. So that way I have 4 equal sections. It's okay if it's not perfect, just as long as you get about 4 sections on your paper. And again, with those 4 sections, we're going to draw 4 different types of weather. You can draw the same 4 weather types that I draw. You can draw only 1 of them that I draw. You can draw 2 of them that I draw, 3 of them that I draw, and then all the rest you can make up, and you can do your own type of weather. It's totally up to you. Okay, but what I'm going to start with is a very nice background. Okay, again, we're going to keep our backgrounds similar to each other so that way we don't focus on them too much. So we're going to draw our backgrounds in our sections first. So what I did in my sample drawing is I just created like a little park or a little hill, maybe some water in the back and a couple of mountains that you can see far away. So something very simple. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw, I added like a little shrub or a bush in the corner. Because again, if you're, making some rain, maybe you're making some snow, you want to add details that that snow or that rain can fall on and really show how it affects the environment that it's in. Okay, now that I have a bush, I'm going to draw a line for the foreground that it's sitting on. And then I'm going to draw maybe the trunk of my tree that I'm going to have. I'm going to draw a curved line here and a curved line there. Then I'm going to finish up my foreground, or maybe my midground now, the curved line in the back. Okay, now that I have my tree, I'm going to add some leaves, some foliage. And that's just what makes your tree look super nice and fluffy. I'm just adding these curved lines. You can draw your tree however you'd like. If you're focusing on maybe different seasons, maybe you have different types of trees in your picture. So you can show, in fall the leaves are red and yellow and brown. In summer they might be green. Maybe in spring they have lots of flowers on them, so they're bright colors like pinks and reds. And then maybe in the winter there's like no leaves on them, so they have bare branches. So it's totally up to you. Make this your own, but I do recommend having at least 1 bush and at least 1 tree in your background, in your scene that you're creating. And then you want to create a background. So I'm going to draw this horizon line here. The middle area doesn't necessarily have to be water. It can be just more land, or it can be, maybe it's the farm that's going across. Maybe it's more of the forest that it's in. Maybe it's just some more grass that you can find animals in. It's totally up to you. Again, this is, the creative part of the project, and this is of the exercise. And this is where you can, make up your own scene however you'd like. So I have my horizon line. I'm also going to add a few mountains that are kind of far and in the distance. Okay, and that's all I'm really going to add. I'm going to keep it very simple. Again, you don't really want to do too much. I'm going to maybe add a couple more lines to show how fluffy my tree is here. Okay, and how full of leaves that it is. So now that I have my details and my scene on my first section, I'm just going to recreate that scene in each of my sections. Okay, now if you're doing the different seasons like I talked about earlier, or if you're doing different kinds of extreme weathers that are different from each other, you want to think about, again, how it differentiates your how it makes your scenes, your environment different from each other, how it affects that environment. Okay, so you want to start thinking about the type of weather that you have in each section. So this section, I'm going to keep that a very sunny type of weather. So I am going to draw a nice big circle for the sun that's glaring down in my scene. And because I have such a huge sun, super, super bright and sunny, I'm going to have a very stark shadow. That just means that it's, it's really prominent, it's very bold. And so I'm going to draw a shadow from my bush here. Okay, and then I'm also going to draw a shadow for my tree right over there. All right, so again, when you have really, really bright light, like a sun, then you have a really, really dark shadow. So these are going to really stand out. Okay, but that's all I'm really going to add into my picture that the sun is going to create. Again, the sun affects my environment by adding shadows. Okay. It also might, help with growth. So if you have some different plant life, then you might want to think about how bloomed or how big those plants might be due to the sun being so big and shiny and bright. Okay, so think about those different things. So now that I have a new section, what I'm going to add for this section is I'm going to make it a rainy day. Okay, so when I have a rainy day, I have really, really big clouds in the sky. Maybe I have some lightning. I definitely have rain coming down. And when it's rainy, things in the environment start to get wet. There's puddles that start to form. So think about those things that you might see when you go outside and it's raining. So again, I'm going to draw, a similar environment here. So I'm going to draw that bush in my foreground again. I'm going to draw the line here for the foreground. I'm going to draw my tree. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly similar to each other. It's totally up to you, and sometimes our drawings are not always the same the more that we do them. Okay, and then I'm going to draw the rest of my foreground there. All right, and then I'm going to draw my horizon line. Then I'm going to draw my hills in the distance. All right, now I'm going to draw my sky. Now what really happens in the sky, like we said, really big and dark clouds. So I'm going to start to draw my clouds here. Now when you draw clouds, if you're drawing them realistically, you usually have, very big fluffy clouds. If you're drawing them in a more cartoon fashion, then you can have, even more curls. You can exaggerate some of those lines a little bit more. It's totally up to you. But I'm kind of adding, a lot of these extra clouds just clumped together because, again, they're all very clumped. They're all over the sky. They're very dark. I'm also going to add some lightning bolts here. Now, you guys are drawing in pencil. So if some of your lightning bolts, you want them to be super, super big. If some of them come into part of your background, you can just erase those lines. I'm doing it in Sharpie, and those lines are pretty small, so I'm not going to confuse you guys and scratch them out because you may not be able to see those details clearly. So I'm just going to leave that. But if you do have a pencil, you can erase those lines inside. Okay, you don't want them to overlap. All right, now you can think about what's inside of here. If it is water, what is the rain due to the water? Maybe it creates these little like ripples as it hits the water, so you can kind of add a little bit. It is super far in the back, so you really wouldn't see too much of these details, but I'm just showing you how you can kind of make those look if you were to draw this scene much bigger. Okay, so we have water coming out from the clouds. So we're also going to draw some rain. Now, rain usually comes at an angle. It's never straight up and down. And I know in cartoons, we usually draw our rain with some with a huge shape, like a raindrop shape is what we call it. So if you're doing it realistically, usually you want to just add these little angled lines. They're going to be much bigger the closer that they get to the ground, much smaller the higher that they are. So you can add some, kind of overlapping your foreground here. Okay, you also might see some puddles of water. If you were to draw the rain, I was saying, if you were to draw your rain in a cartoon fashion, you usually see a raindrop shape. So if you'd like, you can change up your rain. Instead of these angled lines, you can draw huge, big raindrop shapes. I'm going to kind of add some raindrop shapes dripping off of our tree here, maybe a little bit dripping off of my bush there. Okay, so you can kind of play with both realistic and cartoon both at the same time. You can just stick to one style. I'm showing you a little bit of both, so that way if you usually like to draw more realistic, you can kind of get a feel for how you would do that with rainy weather, or if you like to draw a little bit more cartoony, then you can see how you would be able to do that with rainy weather. Okay, so back to my puddle. We usually get some puddles that form around, big areas because we have maybe this bush or this tree that is stopping the water, and then the outside areas capture all that water, so then it starts to drip and it creates this like puddle like area. Okay, so for this puddle, you might have, some wavy lines and to show that it's water. All right, you also might have these, again, ripple effects that happen when the rain hits the water. Okay, maybe I'll draw another smaller one there. All right, now when there's water, a lot of the times little insects or little bugs or little creatures like to kind of come because they, maybe not a lot of people are out, so they feel more free. There's free water on the ground, so they'll go and drink it. I'm not too sure why little creatures and animals and bugs like to come out when it's rainy, but they do. So you can maybe add a little worm or a little snail kind of trailing its way to the water. Totally up to you. It's really small, you can't really see that, but it's a little snail that I've added here. I added a group of slime that comes behind it. All right, so now that you've added your details for your rainy side, again, you can add any other details that you'd like. I'm gonna add some rain that kind of comes over my tree there. Maybe a couple more in my bush. All right, so now that I've added my rainy area, next I'm going to work on my third section. Now again, you guys can follow along with me or you can start creating your own type of weather, but still kind of pay attention as you're drawing for the tips on how you can create certain types of lines and texture to create a feeling of that weather. Okay, so again, I'm going to start with my shrub, but this time in this section, I want to make it very windy. So whenever it's really windy outside, you usually see, the trees swaying in the breeze. You see maybe, if you have a shrub, maybe the tops of the shrub are just kind of being pulled a little bit. Maybe you see things flying all around, maybe see leaves flying in the air. Maybe some other things that are flying, maybe someone lost their hat. So you can really have fun with a windy weather scene. So if you guys are drawing a windy weather scene, then think about what might have happened to you when it was really windy. Maybe you're flying over, maybe your umbrella got carried over, or maybe you see some paper flying in the wind. So yeah, let's get started on that. Now for my bush, I'm gonna kind of draw and try to make my tops of my bush a little bit more to the left, so that way it looks like it was maybe pushed over by the wind a little bit. Okay, now that I have that, I'm gonna draw the bottom of my foreground, then I'm gonna draw my tree, and then again, my tree is really pushed over here. So I'm going to draw the foreground there, but I have my tree that's been pushed over by the wind, so I have it swaying to the left. Now maybe your wind is coming to the right, so you can have everything swaying to the right. It's totally up to you. Okay, and now I'm going to draw the tree here, swaying over to the left. All right. And then I have my horizon line. It's kind of hidden by the tree now. I have my halos off in the distance, again, kind of hidden by my tree. And then what might you see in the sky if it's windy? Still might see some sun, but maybe there's a lot more clouds that cover the sun. So, whenever it's windy, it might be very gloomy. And that's just because, the sun's still out, but the clouds are hovering over the sun. So you can't really see much light. You see more of like a gray, misty type of environment of sky. Okay, so I'm going to draw, some fluffy clouds, not as fluffy or big as my rainy clouds. Again, maybe they're kind of overlapping each other. And then I'm going to have a little piece of my sun kind of peeking through. Okay. Now, whenever you do draw a sun, I know when we do cartoon drawings, we like to add huge rays for the sun. Even if you're doing a cartoon drawing, I recommend you try to stay away from the rays of the sun because that's not super realistic. And when you are doing a cartoon drawing, you're not drawing realistically, but you're playing off of what is real. So, you can exaggerate a little bit more. You can definitely add rays if that's what you like to do, if that's your style. But usually we try not to add sun rays because that's not super realistic. Even if we are drawing cartoon, we still may not see those sun rays. So I'm not going to add any sun rays when you see my sun today. But if you'd like to add your sun rays, then definitely go for it. Alrighty. So now I have my, cloudy sky. All right. And then I have my sun that's being covered. And now another thing that we would see, well, actually, another thing that we may not see, so this is for our cartoon friends, we may not see wind. We hear it, we feel it, but we don't see it. We see things flying in the wind. But a lot of times when you're drawing like in a cartoon or anime style, you really want to animate things that are not, that don't hold life-like features. So we don't see wind, but we can hear it and we can feel it. So you could possibly draw some wind, and I'm going to show you how you would be able to draw that if you don't want to add, these wind lines. You want to keep it more realistic. Rather than drawing the wind lines, you would just draw some things kind of flying in the sky. That will show that it's really windy, especially this tree kind of being almost taken over. It's almost flying away. So I'm going to show you realistically first. You can add some leaves kind of flying in the sky in all different directions. They're not all going in one direction. Maybe some are going up, some are going down, some are going across. It's totally up to you. So maybe you might see some leaves being traveled and chased over. Now, if you are drawing a little bit more cartoon-like, you can start to add these like little wind lines. Okay, kind of makes like a whoosh. Makes me feel like it's a whoosh sound. That's how I might draw those wind lines or those whoosh sounding lines. Okay. So if you'd like, you can definitely draw it like this. If you have a different way that you like to draw wind, maybe you draw wind a lot, and so you have a specific way you like to draw wind, you could definitely draw it that way as well. Maybe you would want to, show the pathway of a tree, of a leaf, and we do these like little intention lines that are like just little dots that kind of show where something came from. And it's not a specific line, that's why it's called an intention line, because it's not a single line that's coming over. It's kind of like dots that show it once was somewhere and now it's in a new place. Sometimes we do that at the end of bugs. We show, that it's kind of flying around. So you can draw something like that if you're doing it more cartoon-like. But add, whatever you want kind of flying around. It's totally up to you. You can even add maybe some action lines to show this was swaying over. It's totally up to you. Okay, so that is my wind drawing. And now, I did forget to add my little branches here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my snowy scene. And again, you can add all of these on your paper like I'm doing. You can just draw one of them with me and then draw all the rest on your own. It's totally up to you. Or you can pick and choose which ones you want and then do the rest on your own. It's up to you. But next what I am going to do is a snowy scene. So again, I'm going to keep my shrub, little bush here. Draw my ground line, draw my tree, the rest of my ground line. And again, as you guys notice, I have kept the same scene, but changed up the weather. It really helps to show how the weather changes your environment. And I think that is, that's our main focus today. So I think it's really helpful when you have a similar scene in each section. If you change it up completely, it's a little hard to tell. You can obviously still see the weather, but it's a little hard to tell how much a single environment has changed just from the weather. All right, so now that I have that, I'm gonna draw my tree. Now, again, if it's snowing, it's probably winter time, and you may not see as much fluff in your trees. I'm still gonna keep my tree pretty fluffy. I also forgot to add kind of these extra fluff lines in my other environments. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of keep mine still a little fluffy for when it's snowing. What I am gonna mainly add is big piles of snow that form on the tops of my tree and the top of my bush. That is what I really love to see when I do see snow, how much snow piles on top of areas that like stop the snow from hitting something. So, the top of the leaves are stopping the snow from hitting the branches, the top of the bush is hitting the snow from hitting, is stopping the snow from hitting the bottom of the hill here. So I think that's such a unique way to show how snowy it is. So I'm going to start on my bush here. I'm going to kind of draw like some soft curved lines because snow is very fluffy. Then I'm going to draw kind of like these wavy lines. They can either be icicles or just show how the snow kind of forms in different ways. So again, I'm going to draw these like little piles of snow here. I'm going to do the same thing over here, and I'm going to draw, little icicle there. Maybe I'll make that part of my snow. Maybe another. All right, and then I have maybe some here, another little icicle. Any big areas you want to add the snow. Maybe you have some snow falling off on the ends here. Okay, and I'm going to add my branches, and some snow might fall through. A tree is not super full of leaves to where some things may not get through in the openings, so I might add a little pile of snow in my little openings on my branches. All right, but now that I have, my tree and my bush full of snow, next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the rest of my background. So I'm going to add my horizon line, my hills. Now, even though these hills are far away, it's snowing pretty much everywhere. It sometimes snows in a certain city, other than another. Sometimes we see snow in little areas, but I'm just going to add snow. I'm going to say that it's snowing everywhere in this scene. So I'm going to add little piles of snow at the tops of my mountains, little ice caps, snow caps. Okay, so I have snow at the top of my hills here. I don't see a sun when it's snowing. Sometimes you don't even see clouds when it's snowing. So it really depends. You can add clouds if you want. You can add a little peak of snow, peak of sun if you want. But I'm just going to keep my sky just plain and simple like that. And what I am going to do is I'm going to add some drops of snow. So I'm going to show my drops of snow just by little dots. Again, this is for if you're drawing realistically. I know we usually think of snow as like snowflakes, and they have these star-like shapes to them. Sometimes you might see, snow frost, and it will create a little star snowflake shape. But more realistically, they're kind of little, just like specks of snow that are falling. So you want to just add kind of a couple of dots falling here and there. But if you are drawing cartoon in a cartoon style, and you do want to add some snowflakes, you can add these little star lines to show the snow. If you know how to draw a more realistic looking snowflake, you can go for it. If you have a big enough area, my area is pretty small. I don't want to really focus too much on too many small details. Okay, it's kind of look like little bugs flying around, but they are little stars, little snowflake stars. Okay, but now that I have my snow kind of scattered all around, I also, what's a snowy day without a snowman? I'm gonna be drawing a snowman. Maybe someone was there and they decided to add a snowman to the hill. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna draw a circle here. Oh, add another circle and then another circle. Now I have these lines going through my snowman. If you're drawing in pencil, you can go ahead and erase whatever background gets into your snowman. But since I'm working in Sharpie, I don't really have the ability to do that. I can't erase, so it's totally up to you. I'm gonna add my buttons, then I'm gonna make my snowman's arms using maybe some branches that fell out of the tree here. All right, maybe some pile of snow that kind of forms around my snowman here. Okay, maybe the person who came by and made the snowman, maybe they also had a snowball fight. So maybe I can add some snowballs kind of around in my snow here. Okay, so again, you can make this look as cartoony as you'd like, as realistic as you'd like. I gave you guys some ideas of how you can do it both ways or how you can do it one way versus another. So I did it both ways just to show everyone what they could do. But again, these are just 4 different types of weather in one scene and showing how it affects that environment in many different ways. Of course, we know there are so many different types of weather and it affects our environment so many different ways. Wind may not just be super windy blowing away the tree. It may do something different from where you are. Maybe you have a story. Maybe you want to add, some personal experiences to your scenes. I think that would be really cool if you lost your umbrella one day, it was super windy, maybe you have your umbrella flying through the scene. That would be really funny. So really make these your own. Have fun with them. Experiment, like I said, think about different types of weather where you live, maybe where you don't live, experiment with it. And also, if you usually like to draw more cartoon, try to draw a little realistically in one of your sections, or vice versa. If you like to draw more realistically, practice drawing more cartoon-like. So think about, these lines and these textures and these shapes that really create a scene and really animate that weather that we feel and hear and see, but maybe sometimes don't really get to see, like wind. Okay. Now that we are done with our drawing, if you need a little bit more time, definitely pause the video. You can take as much time as you'd like, and then you can follow along with us next. We're not going to have too much time left in our exercise. I'm not going to show you guys how to color everything, but next we are going to go over how we can color these. So you can pause the video now and then catch up with us in a moment. All right, so for my friends who are done, next you can choose any materials that you have, any colors that you want. Again, whether you're working realistically or in a little bit more cartoon fashion, you can use whatever colors you'd like. And go ahead and start to color in your scenes. And again, really show how the scenes change, how the environment changes, the colors change. And the environment changes so much during different types of weather. So it's really awesome. Like, we learned how to draw it, but coloring it will really push those forward and will really make a very beautiful final picture for you. Okay, so I'm just going to show us real quickly how we can color in our sunny section, but I'm pretty sure you guys would be able to learn and know how to color all on your own. Again, you can use realistic colors, you can use any other colors that you want, so I'm going to leave that up to you guys. If you'd like to color along with me, you can. If you'd like to just go ahead and start coloring all on your own, go for it. So I'm going to color in my sunny section. I'm going to start with my my bush and my tree, and I'm gonna just color in those, fluffy leaves here. And again, start thinking about texture. So if you didn't add certain textures in your drawing, you may also be able to add your texture with the material that you're using. So if your bush is super fluffy, maybe you might want to take a dark color and add some of that fluff in there. Okay, so maybe you want to add some shadow in your bush. So I have, again, the sun is blaring right at the top, so I'm going to add a little shadow at the bottom and the side here. Okay, and now I'm going to add, maybe I'll do a little bit on the right side of each of my fluffs here. There you go. Okay. And then I have my tree over here. And again, it's bright and sunny. Usually on a sunny or in a summer day, we see nice green leaves. So I'm just gonna outline my leaves here and then color those in. All right, and now with my fluffs, I can take my darker green and I can outline those. Okay, again, our sun is on the left and it's super bright, super sunny. So I'm gonna have very big shadows. I'm gonna add a shadow to the bottom of my tree here, inside this extra piece of fluff for my tree. Maybe a little bit more shadow on the right side because it's not getting that much sun there. All right, there I have my tree. Now I'm going to add my tree trunk. I'm going to take a brown. I'm going to be coloring in mine a little bit more realistically, but you can choose any colors you want to color these in. It's totally up to you. Now I'm going to color this in with my brown, and I only have one brown. So if you have multiple browns, you can definitely choose a darker shade for the shadow in your tree trunk. But since I don't have a dark brown, I'm just going to take my brown again, and I'm going to go where my shadow would be. I'm going to add a couple of extra layers to make it look a little darker on those sides. Okay. You can also maybe take like a dark color, maybe like a dark green, a dark blue, and you can go in very carefully and just kind of push those darker colors. All right. Now that I have my tree trunk, I'm gonna color in my foreground. I'm gonna use this light green again. I only have 2 greens, and I really want to show my shadow on the foreground here that's cast by my tree and my bush because the sun is super, super bright, casting a shadow. So I'm going to take my light green to fill in my ground, and then I'm going to take my dark green to fill in my shadow. All right, so I'm going to take my dark green, start filling that shadow in. Now, just the way I use long strokes for my grass, this is still grass, so I want to make sure that I keep a similar direction and strokes. It's still the same thing. And then using your dark green, if you'd like to add maybe a couple of details in your foreground, maybe some grass lines. You usually want to work closer to you, you want to make things bigger, and then further away, you want to make them a little bit smaller. You can add, flowers if you'd like. All right, so now that I have my grass and my tree and my bush. Next, I'm gonna work on my ocean. So again, you can make that just even more grass if you'd like. Whatever's closer to you is usually much darker. So if you have an even lighter green, you can definitely make that some more grass. Maybe it's, you know, if it's a farm and maybe there's wheat in the further area in the mid-ground here, maybe you want to color that with like an orange or a brown. It's totally up to you. It's your scene, so make it your own. I'm going to keep this an ocean here. So I'm going to use my dark blue. Now, if you have different shades of blue, you can definitely use a lighter blue and then take your dark blue for some waves or some texture lines in your ocean. I'm going to use a dark blue in my ocean here because I'm going to use my light blue for my sky. So I don't want those colors to touch each other. All right. So I'm going to use these long horizontal strokes again because I have water. I'm going to go in the direction of the current. Maybe instead of an ocean, maybe it's, you know, a lake. Maybe this is the scene of a campsite, and so this is the lake that's close by. Again, make your scenes your own. Create a story for yourself. Maybe it's a personal experience. It always makes your art much more fun and interesting when it's when there's a story behind it. Now for my mountains in the background, I'm going to use my brown. Just color those in very carefully. Now it's a very small area, so I'm just using the tip of my marker to color that in. All right. Next, I'm going to color in my sky. So I'm going to use this light blue here. And since I have my sun, I want to trace around my sun, and I'm going to carefully not color that in. Only color it in my sky. So I'm going to trace around my other areas. Don't forget those little pieces inside the tree. All right, and again, horizontal strokes, because our skies go side to side. They're nice and long. They don't go up and down. All right, and lastly, I'm just going to need to color in my sun. So again, this is all I'm going to color in for you guys to show you. But I hope you guys continue on with the rest of your drawings and you color in all that you drew. Have fun with it, take your time, and really show and make that weather come through in your picture. So if you do get to finish this and you get to color everything, I hope you guys share with us your artwork that you've made. I think you guys have done such a great job, and I'm so excited to see what you created. Again, this was learning how to draw certain weather and using lines and texture and shape and color and how to create and make that weather come through and really stand out in your drawings. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope, again, you get to share with us. If you liked this video, please make sure to like and subscribe and click the bell for notifications. All right, and so thank you guys again. I hope you have fun. Please stay tuned for more videos where we teach you different other exercises, different art vocabulary, art fundamentals, art history, lots of fun things. Keep coming back. I hope to see you guys again soon. Take care.